When did the class clown go way too far? Story 1. This is 1999. It's been 6 months since Columbine. We're attending school about 40 miles away from Littleton. Lockdown drills just became a thing. Due to our proximity, ours involved the local police drilling alongside us, cleaning rooms, etc., etc. Might just be publicity, might not. We're all lined up against a wall in our dark as F room, and the class clown grabs a stapler off the desk, snaps it open so it's fully extended but not dumping staples, then whips it against the kid's leg next to him, driving a staple into his kneecap. Of course, the kid screams bloody effing murder. 3 dudes in full tactical gear stream in, take like 6 seconds to assess, grab the class clown, drag him out. Literally never saw the kid again. Don't know if he got sent to explosion school or what, but he was like a ghost. You bet your butt we minded our P's and Q's during every lockdown drill after that. Sounds like they sent him to the back rooms. Is that meme out of date yet? Story 2. 1969. We had a guy that lived on the street next to mine that made a bomb. It was made out of old-fashioned ceramic drain pipe, filled with a type of black powder and clogged on both ends. There was a hole on one end where he'd place a lit cigarette as a fuse. He drove to the high school on Halloween night, set it in the middle of a grassy field, and set it off. I lived about 1 mile away as the crow flies. I was handing out candy to kids as I heard a loud boom way off in the distance. The explosion blew out house windows for a couple blocks. I had friends that lived a few hundred yards away and they thought their own houses blew up. The police said on the news that they were surprised it didn't collapse the gymnasium. Also said the gunpowder used could have gone off from a good bump in the car's trunk. It left a hole about 5 feet across and 3 feet down. All the grass about 10 feet out was sheared and laying on its side, like it popped out of the ground. The guy that did it got expelled. I heard he only lives another 10 years and had a tough life, short as it was. I'm just surprised he only got expelled. Story 3. I've got another one. 2 guys in my AP stats class who were always goofing off. Usually pretty funny, no victims, etc. One day they, for some reason, decided to go in on a very smart, popular, relatively quiet girl. Just roasting everything she said, would not let up no matter how many times the teacher or other students were like, okay, chill. Finally, one of them made a crack about how she was so sensitive because she'd probably been R-worded as a child. Whole class went silent. She burst into tears. From what I understand, she had a good family life, so that probably did not happen to her. But it was clearly so upsetting to her that she ended up leaving class and going home for the day. So, I mean, don't make freaking jokes about trauma to people when you don't know if they actually experienced that kind of trauma. That is so incredibly messed up of them. I hope they got into a lot of trouble for that. Story 4. He put a hit of acid into our workshop teacher's coffee. Fortunately, our workshop teacher recognized the onset and immediately called into the office and said that he's leaving right now as he's feeling very unwell, but will remain in class until the replacement arrives. We had a teacher fill in about 15 minutes and our workshop teacher left. At lunch, we saw that his car was still parked in the parking lot. This was well before cell phones, so there's no way he called someone. Come to find out, he ran into a local park and waited out the storm, as he realized that he was dosed with acid and that he was a teen in the 70s, so he knew. The next day, he taught class as normal and didn't mention it. Man was probably feeling all nostalgic in the park. Story 5. He would try to jump around parkour style desk to desk all class long. Sometimes would fall comically, breaking things and falling in people trying to get a laugh. Constantly redirected for trying to do run flips on the wall, telling horrible jokes, or balance large objects on himself. He always wanted attention. We just wanted to learn beginning French. We all, including the teacher, ignored him. One day he couldn't handle people not paying attention to him. So we tried to see if he, for the first time ever, could do a backflip. Landed on his neck. Oof, was out of class for a long while. Story 6. Joking around how the class was shot and he'd rather die. Took off his tie and stood up in front of the class and pretended to hang himself. Teacher just came back to work from a long break after finding her son hanging in his room. None of us knew that's why she was off work, but I remember her face going white and just seeing her heart break all over again when he did that. Safe to say, nobody even laughed and he was made to feel like utter crud. Story 7. He got kept back in class over break as a punishment for being too annoying, or something along the lines of that. The teacher then needed to leave the class to go and photocopy something, and he got up and started messing around at her desk. When he saw her coming back into the room, he thought it would be funny to bolt over to the door and slam it as hard as he could on her hand. She broke 2 fingers and had a bad panic attack. He got suspended for 2 days and the school tried to press charges on him. What on earth went through his mind and made him think something like that would be funny? Story 8. The time that this happened was when this kid, we'll call him Billy, came back from the bathroom. We were told that we were getting a new student who had a little bit of autism. When Billy got word of that, he sat up and said, "Hey teacher, we're getting an autistic kid, right?" The teacher nodded, then Billy squatted and flailed his arms around while wildly screaming. The whole class, including the teacher, was mortified. I'm just glad he got in trouble and couldn't go to recess. We were in 5th grade, by the way. Story 9. Recruiting most of the class via text to download a dog whistle app. So whenever the teacher called him out and took his phone away, someone else could do it and emit a high-pitched sound that was hard to tell where it was coming from. And his name would be cleared until he would do it again. This ended with tears on the teacher's side and went on for almost a week as the teacher was too kind for discipline, and eventually ended when the teacher left her job and chose a different field. Story 10. He made weed brownies in culinary class that were distributed to teachers. Lots of blazed and very confused teachers that day. He got caught and had to pay a huge fine and serve like 3 weekends in jail. Meanwhile, someone in Austin brought weed brownies to school and was caught. The total weight of brownies was counted as marijuana, and when arrested he was facing life in prison. I really want brownies now. Story 11. He was actually a friend. He and his girlfriend had adult relations on a sports bus. We were all sitting there thinking, what the absolute F? It was no secret that they were involved, but we were literally half an hour out. Could have waited and had spicy time in the parking lot, and nobody would have seen or cared. Both were expelled. His father had a construction company, a good one, and he wound up there and has done well. She moved, states away, and I have no idea. Story 12. He was pretty popular with the girls, and at least a year older than everyone. We were on a school trip for a week. He ended up making a voice recording of them making spicy sounds, moaning, groaning, rattling the closet door, and put it through a very loud Bluetooth speaker in front of random people's rooms. Too bad for him, a bunch of teachers were staying in that corridor as well. So, that didn't go too well for him. Edit, we were all like 13 years old, and he was 15. He did some even weirder stuff down the line, but that's not too class clowny. Story 13. He hacked into our Catholic school's Twitter account and changed the location of the school to N-word land, and tweeted to deport all N-words back to Africa, and then posted interracial corn gifs all throughout the afternoon. He tweeted out Sick Heil. It was kind of funny for a while because they weren't his personal beliefs, but he wanted to post effed up stuff on a Catholic school Twitter page. This was until he started posting the nudes of girls who went there and their names attached. And some inappropriate upskirt shots he took of female teachers while he held his phone under their skirts while they answered questions of kids next to him. Needless to say, he was expelled before some legal action from the girls. Story 14. This wasn't at the school I went to. The students from my school had a citywide reputation for being a bunch of theater kids, teacher pets, and snobs. But a school one town over where I did a placement when I was 15. During those 3 weeks, some jokesters who were apparently the class clowns of their grade decided to pour chocolate milk onto the school's fish tank, which wasn't very big. This was on a Friday afternoon, but the teachers only found out about it Monday noon. By then, all the fish had died already. I can't tell you how the students in question were punished. That was handled privately. But it was decided that for the foreseeable future, there would be no more fish. Those poor fish. And what a waste of chocolate milk, too. Story 15. Not something really big, but still messed up. In middle school, there was this kid with a mental illness, so he was slower than the majority and had tics, but he wasn't the crazy type. Just needed people to be kind to him. The class clown, for some reason, just hated him. There isn't really a way too far moment like others here, but one time the class clown threw the poor guy's backpack down the staircase, something like 2 stories. Sometimes he just insulted him or threw his stuff out the window. One time he even slapped him. Later, we found out the class clown had big family issues, but whatever. He just disappeared between the second and last year of middle school. Story 16. I had a study hall where 75% of my class was the class clown. We were watched by the librarian, who was known to have a short temper, Mrs. Showstack. It was essentially their goal to give her an aneurysm for entertainment each class. They would always do something to tick her off, and before you knew it, half the class was in the office. One day they started playing the Showstack game. Think the penis game, but screaming Showstack louder and louder instead of penis. By the end of it, kids were screaming Showstack at the top of their lungs while she was shrieking, "Shut up, shut up, shut up!" and threw herself on the ground crying. She was so ticked. Poor Showstack. That poor lady. I hope she was able to go home and get some peace and quiet after that. Story 17. Last year, one of my classmates poured hand sanitizer on his desk and set it on fire. I wish I was joking. A friend of mine, a true class clown, had heard that if you poured rubbing alcohol on yourself and lit it, you would not burn, only the alcohol would. So, at a party, he poured alcohol all by himself, lit it, and started walking around like the mummy. It began to burn. He began to panic, and fortunately, adults were there and they put it and took him home to his mom, a nurse. He was covered in 1st and 2nd degree burns. Ugh. Story 18. Some of my upper-class clowns decided to key swastika symbols into the car of the German language teacher. She was always getting picked on about being German and teaching German language. Her classes were always a mess because of the kids playing bomb, yelling bombs and everyone getting under the table, doing the name salute, etc. She was pushed to tears on several occasions, but the car was the last straw and she ended up having a serious breakdown. She finished that school year, but afterwards left to teach at another school. I'm not sure if the students that did it were ever caught or if anything happened to them. Story 19. Brought firecrackers to class and the teacher caught me right off the bat. She kept all confiscated items in a tall glass jar. Cool part was that at the end of the year, she gave them back. This was in 5th grade. 7th grade, I ate a bunch of tamarind candy and would sometimes joke around and blurt stuff out. One of those times I started choking on the candy, started coughing uncontrollably, and I panicked. I jumped and ran to the restroom, puked in a urinal, and I thought all was fine. Till I see a trail of puke running from my desk all the way to the restroom, shirt covered in puke, etc. Kinda cruddy to be honest. I really think I had a good amount of ADHD. Not sure if I just learned to live with it or what. Note to self, never eat tamarind candy. Story 20. So we had this one teacher's aide that was pretty fat. Most of it was in her butt. She had probably one of the biggest butts I've ever seen. Not really in an attractive way, but just honestly a huge butt. One day, she bends over close to the class clown, big butt sticking up in the air. This guy proceeds to smack her butt as hard as he can. We were in 7th grade. The class was shaking. It was so loud and the look on her face after. Whew. Everyone was too scared to even laugh, but looking back it was hilarious. She screamed at him and was beaten red in the face. He gets suspended and a strong talking to about how it's sexual harassment, etc. The boss he had to do that still impresses me today. Story 21. It was like teacher review day. I can't remember the official name. And he poured a flammable solvent on a workbench during chem class and set it on fire. The teacher freaked, put it out with a fire extinguisher, everyone ended up in the powder stuff that came out of it, and the teacher told us not to tell anyone. He didn't get reviewed when we were there, but apparently he would be next period. Needless to say, the class clown got suspended. Story 22. 2003. This dude named Ryan brought a batch of weed lollipops to our school. Gave them to absolutely everyone, including teachers. If you think it was funny, then you're right. It did, however, ignite an S-storm of super colossal proportions. The parents, teachers, cops, even the state government got involved. Cue up expulsion. I think the dude even went to juvie for a little bit. It created a cluster F. It was funny though. That is pretty funny. Why is it always the dudes named Brian though? Story 23. The class clown was my older brother. This took place while I was in elementary school, just a few months after 9/11. So everyone was really on edge. He stood up on the bus and shouted he could kill everyone on the bus with a bomb. He did not have a bomb. He went to juvie. About 6 years later, he would convince a bunch of his high school peers to tear out a bus seat and throw it out the back while the bus is on a busy highway. Story 24. Class clown decided he was going to rip a loud fart during the middle of a test and ended up pooping his pants on accident. I've always wanted to put on a diet, eat a gassy meal to save up a huge fart, and then ask someone to pull my finger. Then I would slowly squeak out the fart and just keep pushing it until I shat. I feel like with a good humor group, it would be legendary. Story 25. This was like the early mid-90s. This girl in 4th or 5th grade just kept pushing the teacher until she finally told the girl something like, "Fine, you want to run the class? Then it's the LLLL show. Go ahead." So the girl went up in front of the classroom and sang and danced and yelled for 15 minutes to get everyone's attention. The teacher just went to the back of the room and wrote her up. Story 26. Made a torch out of a pack of tissues impaled on a pencil and then lit it up. Threw it in the unaware teacher writing on blackboard. Luckily, he missed her head by about a foot. Then he ran to the burning remains and stomped on it, putting it out, acting like it wasn't him and asking loudly, "Who did this?" No one got informed. Teacher didn't even know who did it. None of the classmates snitched him. Sounds like he had some pretty chill classmates. I hope he didn't go throwing torches at anyone else after that though. Story 27. Trolling a girl in the first class of the semester. She makes a comeback about comebacks and he uses the all-powerful comeback joke. And she gives him the finger. He says, "If that finger had balls, you'd be pregnant." The teacher, with half a smile on his face, calmly says, "Dude, get the F out, man." Story 28. Class clown got called out by the substitute teacher who happened to be Jeffrey Dahmer's dad. In essence, he told him to control himself and the class clown fired back by saying, "Like you controlled your son?" Ooh, audible gas in the classroom, and teacher sent him out of the room and took a minute to collect himself. Story 29. Pierced his ears in the middle of class, then used a pair of earrings he was given from the bottom of some random girl's purse. This all happened while the teacher was asleep. Another one hid a bunch of dead fish in the ceiling tiles the day before summer break. The school reeked for many months. Story 30. My then science teacher had just had a miscarriage, and the kid who was usually known as the class clown, knowing exactly what had just happened, made a dead baby joke. She ended up yelling at him and then broke down and cried in front of the class. Story 31. He ended up jumping onto the field of the Phillies game and got tased. He then peed his pants and was on national TV. They wouldn't even let him walk at graduation or go to prom. He was one of the nicest and funniest kids. He even got on Ta Show for that one. Story 32. These two girls were always mean to the German teacher and constantly pushing her buttons. One day, they broke into the German class trailer before school and covered everything with pads and tampons that had been colored to look like they were used. Ew. She didn't even come back to school after Thanksgiving break. To be honest, I don't blame her. Story 33. Rugby tackled a guy during tag or something. Might have been cops and robbers, I don't know, it was a few years ago. And chipped both of the other guy's front teeth, taking massive chunks out of both, needing the other guy to have surgery to get plastic-ish grafts on them to make them look normal again. Once again, can't remember, and I didn't go into the hospital with him. Too long didn't read? Rugby tackled the guy and messed his front teeth up. Story 34. I chose to take history during the summer to get it out of the way. This kid named Hunter was the class clown, and it was amusing at first. Our teacher was also young, around mid-20s, very easygoing. They got into a joking, lighthearted argument during class, everyone was laughing, and Hunter throws his sharpened pencil across the room, hitting the teacher. Instant silence. He made the kid leave the room and talk to us for a long time about boundaries and respect. The kid barely spoke a word the rest of the summer. Story 35. Not so much a class clown, but a lover of attention nonetheless. She came to my school one day, and at recess she's like, "Hey guys, I can make myself faint, check it out." And so she does this thing where you kneel down and hold your breath and stand up and then faint. So she fainted, obviously. But then she started having a seizure out of nowhere, and we were all like, what the frick? And an ambulance came and it was all crazy. But in the aftermath, she never really had seizures before, but then after that and all throughout high school, she had mad seizures. I think I literally witnessed permanent brain damage. Story 36. In high school, the little jerk punched a special needs kid. I'm not sure why, but before I could even blink, me and another stranger had him on the ground, proceeded to kick the living snot out of him before a cop and a few teachers pulled us off him. After 3 weeks of suspension, apparently the story was that the clown was the victim and that me and the stranger, who I ended up becoming very good friends with, were just bullying him. Not a single word of what he did to the special needs kid. Because the clown was really popular, we ended up becoming social outcasts to the point that I ended up leaving public school for homeschooling. Had trust issues ever since. Even though they were made out to be the bullies, I'm really glad they stood up for the special needs kid, and I hope the real bully gets what's coming. Story 37. I remember a time in high school when the kid, some guy named Roland, ended up getting arrested for one prank. So we had just finished history, chemistry, Spanish, and we were in algebra when he said, "When PE comes, I'm gonna give all the prankies." I was like, God, and sure he doesn't do anything stupid. He must have heard my prayer, cause what happens next? We were playing dodgeball, and the coach was eating lunch at the time, and soon he hit the coach. He was like, "We're gonna talk after this." So he bends down for the fork, and soon Roland throws another dodgeball at him. But the fork rammed into a nearby electrical outlet, and let's just say that was the last time I saw him. You should have seen him kicking and screaming as the cops hauled him away for unintended murder. Story 38. He started pleasing himself in class, which was not much of a big deal in our class because me and some other guys have done it multiple times. But he took it a step further. He started doing it while the teacher was teaching while walking around the class, and guess what? He got caught first time. Teacher ignored him probably out of embarrassment, but that idiot was dumb enough to get caught again. This time, the teacher told him to get the F out of her class, told other teachers, and the class clown got in so much trouble for that, as he should. But what do you mean you and other guys have done it before? Story 39. This kid in my PE class last year had nicknamed Ethan, the boy with Down syndrome, as Eshvin. He had Eshvin hauling dumbbells across the gym due to the fact that he convinced Eshvin that he had a dumbbell hauling business. This lasted for about 40 minutes until the teacher realized what was happening. Eshvin is alright to this day. Story 40. For me, it was the time that he put a stun bee in the hood of my sweatshirt. People were laughing, so I reached back there to see what it was and it stung me. Lucky me, I'm allergic to bees, so I got all effed up and had to spend the afternoon in the nurse's office. It was the first time I wore a hoodie to school. Definitely didn't do that again, lol. Story 41. Not naming the people, so we're gonna call him Tommy. So Tommy convinced another kid, we'll call him Timmy, to climb the roof in the boys' bathroom and look into the girls' bathroom. And Tommy pushed Timmy through the roof into the girls' bathroom. Timmy was fine except for a few bruises, and he got suspended, and Tommy got expelled. Story 42. Shoved a piece of eraser in his ear, then again, and again. was taken by ambulance out of the classroom while screaming and crying. He lost his hearing in one ear and couldn't participate in the gym for a while. He also couldn't sit down for a bit. Not sure if it was related. I really hope that isn't related. Story 43. My brother was a high school teacher back when we all used VHS. They watched a movie in class that they were supposed to finish watching in the morning. The class clown somehow got into the classroom and switched the tape to a buckhorn promo cued to the last few strokes/money shot, which was viewed by all. Story 44. No individual moment, but our class clown so consistently raised his hand to ask stupid questions that our class was literally a few days to a week behind the other class that didn't have him in terms of getting through all the slideshows. The teacher literally made a rule that he could then only ask one question per day. Story 45. Just before basketball regional or something, he took something like 20,000 silica balls and spread them in the gymnasium. Apparently, those will react with your common 4 lacquer, so they had to strip the entire floor and refinish it. I'm pretty sure he spent some time locked up for vandalism. Story 46. In math class, we were watching a video on some material I already forgot, and the video was around minutes long. Once the video ends, the class clown says, "That video lasted about as long as your last marriage, Mrs. T." Mrs. T's husband had died a few days ago after their 1-year anniversary. That is so messed up. Story 47. My time to shine. One time in year 8, one of the class clowns stood up on his desk, pulled his trousers and underwear down, and started swinging his you-know-what around, shouting, "Anyone want a taste?" The teacher called the head teacher and he got expelled from the school and is now known as PP Swing Boy. I wish this was a joke, but it's not. Story 48. People were taking turns at throwing things at the fan in class, and the objects kept on getting larger as time went on, with pencils and pencil cases and book bags being thrown. The class clown picked up a locker and legit just yeeted it at the fan, like 2 lockers on top of one another. By doing this, he endangered like 4 kids sitting below the fan because the lockers didn't actually hit the fan. Story 49. The class clown was making fun of our history teacher when she said that before the planes hit, she got out and she was walking on the sidewalks and watched as the first plane hit. It took her 17 years to stop ducking when she heard planes flying when she was near her car or in a building. The class clown called her a wuss and was laughing. Story 50. Last year an a-hole, who I bet thought he was hilarious, threw a book at me. Yeah, he doesn't think he was so funny after realizing I'm not a fun guy to anger, mainly because I beat him with the book until I got sent to the office. Before you ask, no, I'm not an overly violent guy. He and his friend just always made fun of me for liking anime, and I got tired of it. Story 51. Middle school, when Chromebooks first became a popular teaching tool, I started using Crash to bypass the security measures and watch YouTube in class. Pretty soon I was leaving hotkeys and backdoors on kids' laptops for money. The principal caught on when this guy snitched, but the suspension I should have gotten was dropped because he was convinced it wasn't me. He called the front desk to make sure they sent him the right kid, lol. Must have felt so good getting away with that. I wonder why he didn't believe it was him. Story 52. I was in the group of class clowns. One morning I decided to bring in noise poppers that sounded like small firecrackers. I handed them around to my friends and one decided to set them off in morning recess. The teachers freaked out and immediately started moving kids towards the building for fear of a shooter or bombing. My friends and I were laughing our butts off, so the teachers caught on pretty quick. We got called down and told how stupid we were, resulting in all of us getting suspended. And since I brought them in, I was almost expelled. Story 53. He put staples into the 8th grade science teacher's banana, and his family ended up getting sued and the kid almost got charged for assault. The teacher is a known pedophile and is hated by everyone. That's probably the reason why the staple was put there. Story 54. When I was a freshman, the senior prank was to cover all the staircases in veggie oil at the end of one of the last school days of the year. People got severely injured, including a very pregnant teacher who ended up having to give birth after they fell. Ugh. Story 55. 2 class clown boys in middle school tried to teach a mentally ill male student how to please himself in the bathroom one day. The mentally ill boy's mother was a teacher and caught wind, and the 2 boys weren't seen for a while. Their lucky sexual assault charges weren't pressed. Story 56. Class clown brought a flask inside class, proceeded to open said flask and drink from said flask as the teacher walked in. Teacher then runs out to get the vice principal. Student also runs out of the classroom, and in the process of trying to leave, he drops his vape lamau. Edit, he dropped it and did not notice, so double whammy. God, I love the phrase double whammy. Story 57. I remember back in elementary school, there was a kid known for his dark humor. I was actually good friends with him at the time, until this happened. During a lockdown drill, he screamed as loud as effing possible and said, "We're in here, come get us!" all while giggling during it. He got after-school detention for the rest of the year. Story 58. He put homemade stink bombs in the trash can inside the boys' locker room. It caught fire and we had to evacuate the whole building. He sadly unalived himself that summer because he had a really rough life with his foster parents. The dude brought laughter to a lot of us, and it's still sad that he's gone. Sometimes the ones that make us laugh the most are the ones hurting the most inside. Story 59. He called a girl's mother pretending to be the school and said she was caught watching porn. Her mother, being an African Christian woman, beat the living daylights out of the girl and came to school the next day looking like she was pushed down a flight of stairs, dragged back up, then pushed down again. Also the day I quit pulling pranks on people. Story 60. Somehow, this really cute girl with a large chest area ended up in our science lab group of me and this other goofy guy. One day, she brings an overnight bag into class. She goes into the bathroom and the goofy guy starts looking in her bag. Before I had a chance to register what was happening, he put a pair of her panties over the top of his jeans. She comes back into class and I run out of the door. She and I were still friends after that, but she was never in our lab group again. Story 61. We had this awesome substitute teacher. He and I talked about metal music a lot, which was rare for teachers at that time in my life. He was an overly feminine man. Everyone assumed he was gay, which is important because it was 2004, and it was a class of 14, 15-year-olds who aren't known for their tolerance. He was a great teacher though, and put up with a lot of shots from these jerks. One day they set off fireworks in class. He thought someone had a gun. I had a panic attack. It was awful. I felt pretty bad. He didn't end up subbing for that school again. Story 62. I was the class clown. Joked about how I was going to shoot up the whole school, had to attend multiple psychologists, psychiatrists, and have many tests done to prove to the school I wasn't a psycho and it was safe to keep me around. Yeah, I'd say it's best to stay clear of those jokes from now on. Story 63. High school trip to London. Finally boarded the plane after many security stops after a bombing scare in the city. He says, yeah, we got the bomb on board as a joke. Had to wait 4+ hours for the team to search the plane. Story 64. Called in a bomb threat and got in very big trouble. So many bomb threats at my school. As I don't live in the US, there were not many consequences. And the terrorist was usually in the class that had a math test that day, without fail. Story 65. Kid put 2 full packs of intense laxatives into our teacher's coffee. She ended up going to the hospital, and he was nearly arrested for poisoning and attempted murder. But got off with like 6 months of community service and was removed from the class. Story 66. In 6th grade, 1991, our class clown put a tack on someone's chair. His victim screamed so loud that it startled everyone, and the clown's laugh turned serious immediately. You're an a-hole, Derek. Ooh, this one sounded personal. Story 67. Called in a bomb threat to get the day off school. We didn't even get to go home, but had to sit in the soccer field for half the day while they searched and found no bomb. Then we had to go back to class. That's a real Derek move. Story 68. Threatened to bring a gun to school and shoot me. He brought a fake gun to school and chased me with it. Oh wait, he got away with his stunt and everyone thought it was funny. You all suck. Story 69. He was clowning around in gourmet class and in his infinite wisdom, cracked some eggs and began hiding them in various places. The sugar container, other people's binders, and even in the darn toilet. Story 70. He threw the foreign exchange student's backpack onto the roof of the school and then locked the window when the student went out after it. He wasn't a class clown after that, but a total a-hole. Story 71. He put laxatives in the teacher's coffee and S just went crazy. He ended up getting suspended, and the teacher tried pressing criminal charges on him. Story 72. Went on a trip to the country courthouse in Ottawa, Canada. Some kid put a pin on the Prime Minister's chair. He got arrested. Wow, that kid has some balls of steel. Story 73. Made jokes about how the depressed kid's father sexually assaulted his mother. Class clown instantly became an outcast when the person said their mom was dead and their dad was in the hospital. Story 74. 4th grade, the class clown decided to hide under the teacher's desk before school started. Teacher walks in, sits down at her desk, and the kid says hi. Catches her so off guard that her heartbeat skips over itself and she nearly has to go to the hospital. Story 75. In 6th grade, the class clown at my school threw a lock from our lockers at the back of the teacher's head and was an excellent markswoman because she succeeded. Story 76. When he starts acting like a prostitute behind the teacher, he dances continuously. He's a boy, by the way, and so is the teacher. The teacher turned around and caught him. He got a headbutt. I feel like a headbutt would be the only good response to something like this. Story 77. When he said, I don't know what slavery it is. It sounds funny. Then looked at his 2 African American friends smiling and giggling. We were 12 and had gone over slavery twice that school year. Story 78. Not the class clown, but one of them. The popular boy/class clown was having an argument with another kid and decided to take his notebook and smash it on the floor. Story 79. Honestly, I used to be surprised by this, but now I wouldn't be surprised if every school had that one kid who would do the Nazi salute during a documentary about the Holocaust every time the teacher turned around. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe for more videos to come, or else this spider will be in your bed tonight.